Welcome everyone to the Watford Short Film Festival online edition. My name's James Dyer, I'm the festival director, and we're joined by Gus Kearns. How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Yeah, great.
Good, good. Let's talk a bit about St. George and the Dragon then. Animation. Tell us a bit about what inspired this film.
So St. George and the Dragon, it was my final year project at university. So I thought, what can I do to best show off my skills for the animation industry? In the UK, obviously, stop motion is my forte, and obviously, the stop motion's got a great history in the UK. Originally coming from Australia, I was thinking something to do with maybe British history to show off likes of Aardman, McKinnon, Saunders, and St. George and the Dragon was a classic English sort of legend, which involved is colourful in if you think of about it. It's got like a dragon, it's got the knight, it's got a folklore element to it, sort of that sort of tradition, and having history a bit in sort of circus and theatre. I wanted to link in a bit of the England's history of kind of travelling theatres and circuses, which are often more sort of religious themed. I think they did like Noah's Ark and stuff like that for was like 1,000 years ago, so some morality tales, and I thought, how can I implement all these things together, sort of a medieval circus, and St. George of the Dragon seemed like a good, colourful, interesting fit for all those kind of purposes.
I think a lot of audiences sometimes underestimate the amount of time it takes to make animation, especially stop motion. How long was the production process from coming up with the idea all the way through to final editing and finishing the film?
So probably all up, it was about a month of pre-production, of just getting the ideas flowing, about 4 months of sort of making the puppets and the sets, and another 4 months of animation and post-production. So probably getting on for a year, all up. Yeah, yeah.
What do you think during that year was the biggest challenge for you?
For me, I would say probably the one of the challenges was, I'd say, probably the animation side. Just the technical aspect was fine, but I'd say just negotiating time at uni to get the space I needed, and sort of ticking all the boxes for the shots, which some shots I was frightened I wouldn't even get the chance to do. So I'm really glad I kind of squeezed everything in the kind of time slots I had available, yeah, it all came off kind of what as good at least as I expected it to be, and not less. So that was I was very happy with that.
Yeah, and with film being very much an audiovisual medium, we've touched kind of on the video aspects and how it's been animated. But from an audio perspective, how did you source your elements, like your music and your voice actors? Were they people you knew, or was it sourced online?
Yes, for the actors I got all from Fiverr, which is kind of often used as for indie productions, and obviously for time, really my main focus was just the visuals for my own portfolio pieces. I kind of wish I had more links and more funding for a better kind of soundtrack and audio, but there was I think Brandon Fletcher, a sort of American fellow, who provided the soundtrack, which was just sort of a base sort of medieval festival soundtrack. But he was a really nice guy, and I'm glad to have kind of collaborated in some way with him for that kind of little medieval kind of vibes in there as well. But some interesting actors as well. It was nice to have a bit of variety of a northern actor and a southern actor, so I get a bit of flavours of different parts of the UK as well, which was kind of fun.
What main message would you like your audience to take away from this film?
For me, it kind of links in with kind of everything I'm interested in. But growing up in Australia with the circus, I was in a similar position to the characters in this film as kind of a travelling family performers, and I was homeschooled as well. So it's just nice to produce something that was part of my childhood, and I would have liked to have seen a bit more growing up. And you see it in Incredibles very much so, and that was a great family film we all loved. But it's just something that, yeah, so people can watch and kind of get a feel for my background, and for that to sort of be sort of known as sort of family adventurers is not seen very much in stories. Often it's like a single person, or like in Friends you have Roz and Rachel, and you have or Avengers movies, they're all kind of adults, but it's fun to have a kind of family dynamic, because you've got to have issues with the kids and the parents, and there's kind of wacky stuff that can go on which you don't see often portrayed currently in media. So just an interesting kind of fun visuals that maybe inspire new ideas for new kind of film concepts and story ideas, which is kind of great to be hopefully inspirational to others. it's always really kind of cool to see where other people take your ideas and stuff.
It's amazing the amount of craft that has to go into animation, and especially just due to how time consuming it is, how you've got to get all of your elements together, have it all working and stuff. You were talking about the biggest sort of challenges earlier. Was there anything unexpected that came up during the production process that you'd perhaps do differently the second time around?
Let's think. I would say the background was a challenge, to say the least. The set, you see the set, I kind of had to use this kind of paper and paper mache stuff in the background, sort of the far background. And I always watch the film now, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could have just had another week to do some really nice sort of trees and really, really well painted mountains, because I have a background in miniature painting. So I had the skills to do it. I just didn't have the time. And every time I watch the film, I just see that background, and it's really painful. And I quite enjoy having the characters in front of it, so it hides the lack of skill there. So that's I think the main thing that I kind of take from. I mean, the animation is sort of, I think, good enough. I would reshoot if it wasn't quite good enough. So I'm fairly happy with that. And the puppets were kind of okay enough. The mother's dress as well would have been a nice one to have spent a bit more time on. That was kind of just like a sack, really. But yeah, so I'd say those are the main issues for me.
It's one of those. I think every filmmaker has it with their film, though, that they always notice things that they may be conscientious of, but most audiences, unless it was pointed out to them, they wouldn't necessarily spot it.
Yeah.
With our audience at Watford, we've got an audience of quite a few different backgrounds, abilities. Some are avid filmmakers, some are students who are just learning their craft. Others are people who are debating whether to get into filmmaking as a hobby or as a career. For those people specifically, what advice would you give to somebody starting out?
For me, I would recommend, I can only really recommend what's really my story, kind of getting into the industry. And that's definitely been building up, spending quite a few years building up a foundation of various other skills that relate to what you really want to do in filmmaking. So really, like, I was 25 before I went to university to do specifically animation. And that kind of made me much more relaxed when I was doing my work. I was much more comfortable. Other students were really nervous. They had to learn all these different skills in puppet making and storytelling, which I kind of had already built up in different ways. I was much more relaxed as to, like, if I didn't find work, I knew what I would do, all these different situations, what I would do in them. And so I was able to make a lot of contacts in university, talking to people in the industry, and I knew kind of my options before going in. And I think that can be a danger with younger people going in at 18. It's just a little overwhelming, and you haven't really got your toolkit really ready yet. Again, I can only recommend my experience. I would say definitely building up, accepting that it's a long life. Being a filmmaker is almost a lifetime kind of pursuit. It's not something like even music or guitar playing or painting, where you can spend a few years and then get a job. For me, it's more of you have to accept it's going to take potentially at least 5 years, probably more like 10 plus, really probably 10 plus to kind of get that real strong foundation to build a career on. I would say, yeah, definitely, and accept that that's the reality of it. I'd say, yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your film with us. The final question that I've got for you is, what's next for you? What are you working on, and where can people see more of your work?
Yes, I have my website, which I'm updating at the moment, and Instagram. I'm Gus Kearns, so on Instagram you just type in Gus Kearns, Kearns. And at the moment I'm looking at building a little bit of 2D stuff just to round out my kind of portfolio. And beyond that, potentially some children's stuff relating to dinosaurs. I've got sort of some dinosaur little ideas, and I know kids love that. I used to love dinosaurs. I'm a kids entertainer by trade of doing balloon modelling and pocket magic, so I have that connection to kind of kids entertainment. So just to further that on, probably I would say kids stop motion of my own kind of little ideas, potentially a serial format on YouTube would be fantastic. Besides from that, I'm still kind of writing different ideas and playing with ideas. So if you ask me a few months' time, I'd probably have a more specific thing I'd be working on. But right now, it's kind of ideas creation zone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, absolutely keep making content. We'd love to see more of your work here at Watford, and we're so grateful that you were able to give us the opportunity to show us St. George and the Dragon.
No, that's brilliant. I'm glad you guys have got some of my stuff, and for people to hopefully take something from what I've done and then maybe do their own version and their own stories and stuff. That's always kind of a fun collaborative element to kind of film festivals. And yeah, I'm in London, so I'm not too far away. So there's that kind of communal aspect which I find quite fun, especially for film festivals that are closely connected to where I'm currently living. So yeah, all good.
Thank you for your time, Gus.
Great, thanks.